happy St. Patrick's Day birthday to Patty Nash.
Hey. Me too, my middle name's Patrick.
All right, very good. To you, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Patty. Happy birthday to you. All right. Beautiful. Well, welcome all to our third self-advocacy workshop. Today we are discussing Social Security benefits and health care, a rocky landscape, and we have experts who are going to help lead us through it. So, a little bit of business. Hopefully everyone has now complied with the request to turn off your devices. That is vital. Everybody knows where the bathroom is, I trust. If anyone would like more coffee or any breakfast items, we have four wonderful volunteers helping us today. David Green on coffee, David Green on everything as usual. We have Sam and Veronica who have just joined us today as volunteers, so please welcome them in. And Marla Holmes has returned to be our stalwart. So blessings to all. Volunteerism is what makes this place a community. Louise brought in Sam and Veronica through a connection with her grandchildren. We just want to encourage everybody that if you have someone in your life who would like to contribute to this community, we have a growing need as we grow our programs. So, beautiful. We also want to take this opportunity, there'll be some announcements throughout our day, to announce to anyone who doesn't know that we've had some staff additions, some changes actually. I'm sure everyone knows that our beloved Leah Gardner Guys, it's all right, I'll just keep going. Everyone knows by now that Leah was compelled to move on professionally, but she is clearly still with us, still on our board, and very much a member of the community. We were very lucky to get a member from our own ranks, Mike Gorman, to step up into technology instruction. So we just want to make sure everybody knows that. Mike? There we go. I'm standing in front of him. He is very much a trainer, and he's already had a few students, but we really want to build up his schedule and take advantage of his skills. So know that we have in situ someone who can work with you and all of your technology, all right? We also want to announce that another member has stepped up to serve, and that is Leland Clark, who is now our special events cook. And isn't that wonderful? He is already and will continue to volunteer extensively with our lunch program and our other special events. So he's a great asset, and we're really excited, and the whole kitchen is working cohesively, and that's all we need, right? So, beautiful. That's part of it. Let's see, do we have any other staff? No, well, there'll be another staff announcement. Let me just really say that the turnout for this wonderful series, which has been made possible by a grant from the San Francisco Foundation, has been extraordinary, and we want it to continue. So this is my plug for early sign-up for our May 19th housing, affordable housing, justice and action. That's our focus for the May 19th workshop. Please feel free to sign up, even today. I think Kelly would allow it. But to know that if we get our names in early, it'll make for a smoother operation. And that's going to be a banner program.
Jana?
All right.
Jana, could we thank Kelly and David for putting this all together?
Absolutely, yes indeed. Many thanks to Kelly and David for making this happen for a third time in a row. We're just getting better. All right, very cool.
Miss Marie, could I ask you to make on a sad note announcement?
Yes, we will be. We'll be handling that, my darling. That's part of our plan. We're starting, however, with our topic now. And in order to make that introduction, we have our own Leah Gardner. And Vander.
Good morning, everybody. See, I told you all I wasn't going to leave you. In just a moment, I'm going to announce Giselle Mallory. Before that, however, I thought we should take a few moments to remember a individual that all of you who have been longtime members know, who passed away rather suddenly of cancer
Just check.
on March 9th. And we just learned of it this week. I believe that he was a member for at least 8 or 9 years. Craig Sheridan Krongard, I think a lot of you knew. I think a lot of us are still shaken by this and trying to process it. So I wanted just to have a moment of silence to remember Craig, because it's going to be very strange not to have him volunteering or just being here at events. In that vein, we're going to have a memorial service for Craig this Friday, March 23rd at 12:30. Anybody is welcome to participate, but you have got to let Jan Santos know by Tuesday at the latest. Right, Jan?
Yeah.
Okay, by Tuesday at the latest, because food needs to be provided, so we need to know that you are coming. So that's March 23rd at 12:30. We're going to have a memorial service for Craig.
Excuse me, Leah, could you let everyone know what be the ending time for paratransit reservations?
I'm sorry, Ray?
Could you let people know about what time to make their the transit reservations to go back home? Would be 12:30 to what?
2:30. So I would say people should make their reservations for between 2:30 and 3.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, between.
Here.
Yeah, it's going to be here at the center.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So now I'm going to continue with today's program. I just want to say a few words about this morning's our first speaker. Giselle Mallory is the founder and owner of Baywide Disability. He can tell you more about what he does when he speaks, but I will tell you on a personal level, I'm really glad to have him here today. He helped me with a major bind that I got into with Social Security about 1.5 years ago, so I can definitely speak for his expertise level in this area, and I think you're all going to learn a lot of great, insightful information from him. So without further babbling from me, I'd like to announce Giselle Mallory.
I'm going to try to make do with this because I usually would be best for me to use a podium. But before I get started, let me give you a little bit of background about who I am and about what I do. But first of all, before I do this presentation, I want to let you know how it's going to work. I'm going to divide this presentation into 3 sections. One, the first section is I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Social Security process. The second step is question. It's more like an overview of what as I do as an advocate and how I can best serve anybody who's under this SSI, SSDI program. And the third step is open for questions and answers. For right now, if you have any questions during your presentation, I ask that you hold off your questions until the end, and I will answer all of them. I also have additional flyers because there's more people here than what was originally expected. So if any of you have any further questions after the presentation, you can come up to me the desk here, and I have flyers and business cards. And I can also discuss anything that you may have. So, without further ado, again, my name is Giselle. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have two questions. One, how many people are on SSI, SSDI? Raise your hand. Great. Actually, 3 questions. Second question, how many of you have had a good experience with Social Security? Raise your hand. Oh, only, come on. There has to be more. Is it too early? That's why you guys don't want to raise your hand? Okay. And my third question. How many of you are over 55? And great. I like you guys. Now, let me talk about myself. I'm going to make it brief because you guys are not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about Social Security. I've been doing this for over 6.5 years. Much like you, I was in your situation about 19 years ago. Recently, I've had experimental surgery to recover my vision. Again, as Leah said, she was a former client of mine. She came to me through somebody a year and a half ago. I helped her with her case. And actually, we've become friends, actually. And I thank her for having me do this presentation. Thanks, Leah. Now, Social Security is a very, very, very daunting process. What I'm here to do today is to try to ease your concerns, your frustrations, and help give you some preliminary information to help you. And should you have to come to me, it will make my life easier. Some strategies that will help you know what documents you need to help further the process in your Social Security claim. On average, Social Security can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. How many people have an idea as to how long it takes for a Social Security claim to be processed? SSI, SSDI, how long?
9 months.
What else?
Year and a half.
120 days.
And on average, it takes about 1.5 years for a claim to be processed.
I'm not surprised.
Now, it's actually worse.
Yep.
Because there's a huge backlog. And I'm quite sure you've been hearing a lot of things on TV about Social Security, about cutbacks. That's true and it's not true. It is true that Social Security is cutting back. Therefore, when they cut back, there's more claims to be processed. They also have to process retirement claims, spousal benefits. There's a whole bunch of benefits, and it's just burden more bureaucracy. One thing that I want you to learn from today, because there's a lot of information I'm going to cover, is just one word. And that word is documentation. That's the most important thing in today's presentation that you're going to need for the rest of the process from A to B and post-disability claims. Social Security has 2 processes, what I call disability and post-disability. Now, what is Social Security? What is SSI and what is SSDI? Social Security is a federal program that was designed back during President Roosevelt to help recipients who are really elderly have some basic financial purpose to maintain a standard quality of living. Now, the word standard is sort of generic, but during that time, a lot of people, like during a recession, were having a hard time, mainly focused on the disabled, into having a quality of living. So therefore, the SSI, SSDI program was created. Good. Now, SSI is supplemental security income. In reality, low income, no taxes. No taxes mean you have not paid into that. SSDI is supplemental, sorry about that. Social Security Disability Income. SSDI. SSDI is where you have paid into payroll taxes during your working career and you have developed or earn a certain number of credits. Each year, there are 4 quarters in a year, which is every 3 months. Every 3 months, you will gain 1 credit of 2 that's being used to help you qualify, or 10 years, either or which comes first. You have to have a minimum of 20 credits or 5 years of work that has to equal to 20 credits to be able to qualify for SSDI. If you do not have 20 credits, you're going to be on SSI. But SSI, they're kind of like into 2 phases, child and adult. Even though you may have a limited amount of credits, say under 30 or under 40, whatever, and you may not qualify on your own record for SSDI, so you may not know how to do that, but if you come to me or go to any lawyer who specializes in Social Security, there's other ways to help get you to that level. One of the ways that can happen is what we call helping you under a parent's record. I, as an advocate, personally speaking, I really seldomly like to use that because there are some downsides to that, which I will discuss a little bit later. So, how do you get on SSI, SSDI? You have to be eligible in these ways. These are sort of the premises. 1, you have to be disabled, or disabled has to last for at least 12 months, period. No questions asked. Not before, but 12 months. Or option number 2, lead to death, which nobody likes to talk about. But those are one of the ways. And I said the other one is the amount of credits. Then we have criteria A and B, which is you have to be severely disabled. What is severely disabled? Severely disabled means you have a serious cognitive or physical disability that is affecting your ability to work or sustain a decent standard of living. That's sort of a broad term here. But that's what's required into Social Security. And again, I said 12 months to lead to death. Then we have what we call Part B, from what I have, and that is physical or mental. What is physical? Physical is anything to where what I like to say, if you can physical, you can actually move. That's the way I look at it. So basically, we look at physical as being mobility. Okay? So if you have a mobility impairment that's limiting your ability, say being blind or being in a wheelchair, various things like that, then that would be under physical. Mental is basically anything that has to do with the mind. Okay? And that can be psychiatric, that can be psychological, ways to which this has to be sort of documented, and that's the key word I was saying earlier about documentation, is that you have to be under a doctor's care. Now, a couple of years, actually, matter of fact, 2 years ago, the law has changed. Whereas before, if you were applying for SSI, SSDI, you can, if you've seen a specialist for your disability, which is actually the preferred method, because your primary care doctor is really not the one to really know about the specific limitation in which you're applying for disability benefits. So since this room, everybody has a visual impairment. So it will either be through an optometrist or an ophthalmologist who will have to be seen to your particular disability. Now, there is something else that you can actually use, and it's called secondary disability. So if you're applying for Social Security benefits, and we're just like using here, everybody's visually impaired, even though you may have another condition, if that condition is severe, then I would seriously suggest that you put down that secondary disability. And the reason why is because when you have what we call the dual impairment, it makes your claim much more easier to process. I'm not saying that it's going to be processed tomorrow, but what I'd like to look at is the substantiability of the totality of the evidence, and that's the key factor. The more evidence that you have on your case, the easier it is for Social Security to really see a pattern of one's disability. There have been times, and actually I've seen it twice actually in my practice, where a person who claimed that they're disabled, but in reality, after going through a lengthy process, they really were not disabled. And that's why I say it's important that you show documentation. And the reason why I mentioned earlier that the laws changed 2 years ago is because somebody, I'm using this literally, somebody in Washington, way before Trump got in office, that Social Security decided that they claim that they want to make it easier, but in reality, they made the process longer. And the way that they did that is by adding a small criteria, which is actually in addition to what is already there, which is a lot of bureaucracy, that said your primary care, that you can no longer see multiple doctors in regards to your disability. The reason why they said that, and they put that in now, that clause, is because in the past people have been going doctor shopping. I don't agree with that, but I have to work with the system. So now you have to see one doctor and one doctor only. And that can cause a problem, because one doctor really is not aware of your disability. And this is just for Social Security to say, okay, we're not going to allow you to get benefits. And therefore they're going to drag the process on as much as possible in order for you to give up. And that's the key thing. If you give up, and remember, for those of you that have paid into the system, this is for you, literally, this is important, that don't give up. Forget about me as an advocate. Try to do as much on your own before you try to come to someone like me. Because if you can do and show that, yes, basically the word is persistent here. If you can be persistent and stand the test of time through this lengthy process, more likely your claim will be approved. It may take some time, but that's how you have to play the game. And really that's what Social Security is about. It's a game between Social Security and the advocate. We go back and forth as to who's right and who's wrong. And I can say, honestly, by doing this for so long, I'm not criticizing Social Security, but approximately 90% of the time, they don't know what they're talking about. That's just a fact. They make a lot of mistakes. And the reason why they make a lot of mistakes is because their training and my training is two different things. They're trained to expedite cases, and the way that they have learned to assist their particular trade is that they're more general. They do a little bit of everything. And since they do a little bit of everything, they're not really focused on one particular thing. They don't have the time to understand the laws. They make the laws through Congress and so forth, Social Security, and they have all these advocates that want to add more and more layers of unnecessary bureaucracy. So if you look at it in a common sense perspective, when you go to the Social Security office, 9 out of 10 times, the first contact you have at the front desk, they're going to give you wrong information. So how do you avoid getting the right information? One, not giving up. Two, as I said earlier, when I first began the conversation, is documentation. Take down the person's name, 2, if possible, get a badge number. Because I can guarantee that they're not going to give you a last name. And sometimes they may be hesitant in trying to give you a badge number, but if you are aggressive, you have to wait it out. I'm going to say that. You may have to wait 2 or 3 hours in the Social Security office, which is ridiculous, but if you can do that, more likely they will cave in and give you what you're looking for. Now, let's get to some good stuff. I'm not going to bore you with statistics, so I'm just going to give you just the layout. There's 2 different sections of Social Security: adult and child. Any idea? A hand as to what's the age for applying for Social Security as an adult? Anybody know?
18.
Good. For a child? What's a child?
From birth to 17, from
Huh?
birth to 18.
Almost.
All depends.
Almost.
Now, they
You almost had to know 3 months to 18 years old.
Really? I didn't know that.
There is a hidden gap inside there actually between child and adult. And it's what we call transitional. Adult, in the Social Security term, it's an adult child. And that's 18 to 21. I'm going to give you some pointers later on in this presentation as to how between 18 and 21, what's the best way to transition in benefits. It's a little tricky, but I'm going to give you some pointers to help you. It's crucial during the 18 and 21 transition period. I'm going to make a note first. When you're between 18 and 21 years old, technically you're still under child, but it's imperative that 3 months prior to your 21st birthday, I really don't recommend 18, but 3 months prior to 21 years old, go to the Social Security office, change your status from child to adult. Why? If you don't, Social Security may not do it. And 2, when you're under the 21-year age gap, and you're under your parents' record. And that's where it can be tricky to you later on in life. I'll use a scenario here. Let's say you're 25 years old, you're on SSI, and God forbid, your parents get divorced. Now, you will probably figure out, how's that going to affect me? I'm on Social Security, but it will affect you. Because the rule is, SSI is technically a poverty-based program or lack of financial resources. With that, anything that affects financially your parents, divorce, widow, die, it's going to affect you to where your benefits will be cut off. We don't want that to happen. So, literally, you have more protection if you put it under your name. Now, the other thing here, what's the benefits of actually being 18 to applying for benefits? One is just the opposite between the child. It's on your record. Now, I know you don't have enough credits because you're transitioning from SSI from SSDI under an adult's record to your record. You will, under very rare circumstances, will you still keep the SSDI, but most likely you'll be put under SSI. I don't like to say that, but it's basically less money. Do you have a question? Oh, okay. So it's very important that you do that. Now, there are some good things now that if you go to the Social Security office, they more likely not going to tell you. There's 5 additional benefits that's good about being on SSDI. 1, a spouse can get benefits. 2, a child. But the key is a disabled child. And all these are applied to disabled. Okay? If you're not disabled, this doesn't apply to you. because remember the whole purpose of SSI, SSDI is disability. The third thing is divorce. Yes, if you're divorced, or yes, you can get benefits. Divorced spouse and widows can get benefits also. The key factor is, again, disability. In future presentations, I will go more in depth with this, but for the purposes of this presentation here, this is just something that you guys can understand. How they work, technically, it's the same thing. When you're applying for SSI, SSDI benefits, even though you're under these auxiliary programs, it's still the same. You still have to go through the same processes of applying, but the only difference is that you're under a different umbrella. And this umbrella is under the main person whose benefits. So, example, like if you're under your father or mother, then that's how Social Security will process the case. Now, there's something in addition. How many people here are military veterans? Raise your hand. Nobody? If you're a military veteran, you can get disability benefits. This is one of the rarest circumstances here where you can get actually two benefits. Veterans, disability, and Social Security disability. Veteran processes are actually a little bit easier than Social Security, but let me kind of briefly give you an overview of applying for benefits as a veteran, how it will work. As a military veteran, you have to have a service-connected disability. What is a service-connected disability? Any illness or injury, same thing as applying to the SSI SSDI program, in which you're unable to work or do your job and have mental or physical disability that's going to last for 12 months or lead to death. Same premises, but the only difference is that you're a veteran. Two, if you're a military veteran, you can have to be on active duty. Now, that's kind of a good thing because you have two different layers. As long as you're on active duty, and if you're on a military site or under the jurisdiction of the military, and you get injured, or if you're still in the military, but you get injured in civilian life, but you're still in the military, this will still apply to you in getting benefits. Now, this is next thing I'm going to talk about is probably the most challenging, and this one I'm going to go into more in depth with. This is what I call the stages of disability benefits. How does this work? When you're applying for SSI, SSDI, there are many layers in which a case goes through. And this is where it becomes the most challenging. One is what I call, in Social Security, say it's the initial process. This is the process where when you first go to the Social Security office and you're applying for disability benefits, your case will be viewed at the local office. The Social Security representative, maybe in the front or in the back somewhere, is going to look at your case and look at the pillars that I mentioned earlier. Is your disability expected to last 12 months? Is it a physical or mental disability? Then, how many credits do you have? Do you have enough credits for SSI or SSDI? If you don't have enough credits for SSDI and you're under 18 years old, then they will automatically put you under a child. In very rare circumstances, will it be converted to SSDI. That's when I will come in later on if you, or any advocate or lawyer can help assist with that. And this is where, right here, the most cases are denied. This is an 80% denial rate. One of the biggest reasons why so many people are denied at this point is, I would call it one of the major simple things, is a lack of paperwork. Most people at this stage do not have all of the required documentation. I understand that sometimes it can be hard, especially now where doctors are so overburdened and they really may not want to process your claim. Don't worry. Be aggressive with your doctor. Explain to your doctor that you have this disability, you've been taking all this medication, or the fact that this disability is chronic, it's not improving. Talk to your doctor, work with your doctor. The more people that you have on your side, the better. 2, if you have a pastor, or those people who go to church, or a friend who knows about your disability, long term, meaning not someone you just met today, someone who you've been knowing for 4 or 5 years, and who's very close to you, that person can be the witness on behalf of your claim. That's important because the more people that you have on your side that knows about your disability, the easier it is for Social Security to believe that this is a legitimate disability. Then there's a second step. This is what we call the administrative review. If your case is denied at the first step, Social Security will then send you more paperwork, which is very lengthy, and say, we need more information because we still have some concerns about your disability. Your case will then be forwarded to another office. It's out of the local jurisdiction's office now. It's going to the DDS office. And these offices are cluttered throughout the United States, kind of like in the region. And it's their job to look at your case and reevaluate it and find out if there's any mistakes made at the initial office. If there are mistakes that were made at the initial office, they can review it and then talk to you some more to come up with a better decision. The third step, this is the best step in any case, is what they call the administrative review. This is where it goes in front of a judge. A judge, and this is where, but at the same time, this is where it takes the most longest. Because this, on average, in California, it takes about 2 years to get to this point. From the time that your case is denied at the initial level, at the reconsideration level. Things that you can do in the meantime before you even get here, because I said overall it's going to take about 2 years. Try to live with a family member because more likely you will be trying to, your home, or if you're living in an apartment, whatever, because you have a lack of resources, you may lose your place of residence. So I would encourage you, if you don't have any money set up already, try and find someone that you can live with while this is being processed. We cannot guarantee that at any one stage of the process a claim will be approved. Each person is different. There are some people's cases that's approved right away, and there's other people's cases that have not been approved right away. It all depends on the severity and the evidence of what the person has on the case, and if he or she is continually going to the doctor. And that's a key factor. Even though you apply for benefits and you think that your disability is never going to get better or your doctor's not cooperating, never, ever, ever, and I want to use ever again, give up and stop going to the doctor. If you stop going to the doctor, your case will be denied, period. Because Social Security is going to look at the fact that even though you have this disability that you're claiming that's why you're applying for benefits, you're not continuing your treatment. 2, if you're under any medication and let's say the medication is not working, don't stop taking the medication, continue to do it. Because even though it may be doing some harm to you, that harm can be a good thing. Because now, the symptom that you had earlier, now you have new symptoms. And we all know about medication. You take one medication, it's piggybacking off another medication. And usually they're worse. So the more worse symptoms you have, which means the worse your disability is going to be. So now, instead of having one disability, now you may have 2 or 3 disabilities. And how does that look?
Real good.
Thank you. It's bad in the short term because nobody wants to be disabled. You're already disabled. But for Social Security, they basically want you to basically be homebound, technically, in order for you to get benefits. It's ridiculous. So when you go in front of a judge, it's very, very tricky. And this is what I want to say. Do not ever go in front of an administrative law judge without having an advocate. I guarantee you will lose. The purpose of the Social Security judge is to basically deny people's cases. They're more stricter than Social Security. They ask you all these technical questions which nobody will understand unless you're, know their language. But they can trick you. So it's best to have witnesses there with you. It's best to have your documentation. It's best to have your medical history. It's best to have your medication history. As much evidence as you can throw at Social Security, the better chances are for your case. Now, when you go in front of the judge, he is going to ask you some ridiculous questions that probably nobody can understand. Don't panic and be truthful, because they will check. Social Security is good at that. Don't lie. As long as you're honest, you have a good chance. And sometimes the judges, depending on the credit you get, they can be your friend. But within that judge, there are two aspects of that case. There's an in person with the judge, or there's something that we as an advocate can do, which we call an on the record appeal. Basically, an advocate will write an argument based on all the evidence in front of, meaning education, financial, medical, everything, to present to the judge for a final decision. Then there's something else that's a hidden thing. What we call going through an appeals request. That's kind of like a way, and this is only done in very, very rare circumstances. I haven't had it done before because I haven't had a case like that. But if what I mentioned earlier, if you're becoming like a financial strain where you're almost becoming homeless, even though it's bad, I can request an expedited hearing. And the good thing about this, you can get provisional benefits. It's not going to be a lot. And while you're getting provisional benefits, which will basically occur probably within a month or so, if your case is approved later on, then they will calculate how much money you're getting. But if your case is denied, the good thing, those provisional benefits, you never have to pay back. That's some good news. We all like money. There's something I want to mention though. If Social Security finds out that you have lied about your disability and you've gotten provisional benefits, you will have to pay that money back. But yeah, that money you have to pay back. If you later now, there's the next step, which you guys will never get involved with, but it's what they call the appeals council. This is where it goes in front of a few judges. That's kind of above the administrative law judge, and this is where an argument is written from your advocate to the Social Security panel of judges to better find out if there's any mistakes that were made during the process of the hearing that was done in front of the judge. Here you have a less likely chance of winning the case to be overturned, because these judges work kind of hand in hand with the administrative law judge. Then, and this is where after this step, which is step D, I stop as an advocate because I'm not an attorney. I'm a non-attorney. Now, if it's still denied at this appeals council level, then it has to go to federal court. This is where it's most hardest, because now we're talking about really, really technical laws, and you have to go to a lawyer, and this can drag on for 3-4 years. So 90% of the time, I can pretty much guarantee it'll be very, very difficult for you to find a lawyer, because nobody will really want to take on this case, because it's just too long. Then now let's talk about benefits. Before I talk about benefits, I want to kind of give you an idea as to, there's two categories of disability within Social Security. There's blindness and there's non-blindness. Those are important because when we're talking about what we call an umbrella of SGA. SGA is basically substantial gainful activity. It's short for basically saying this is how much you can get or earn, so either qualify or earn if you're working for Social Security benefits. If you're blind, at present in 2018, it's $1970, which is $1,970. If you're on SSI, it's at present, what's my salary? 1,800 if you're on SSI. Huh? Yeah. Oh.
They want you to repeat those numbers.
Okay. At present in 2018, because every year this changes. This current average for a blind person that either has to have earnings to apply or qualify, or are working and cannot earn more is for blind is $1,970 a month. If you're non-blind, it's $1,800 a month. Got that? These numbers, these are the most important numbers you have to understand. I would really say if you're applying for benefits, it doesn't really matter that much because more likely your work has decreased because of your disability. But if you're got benefits and you're actually working, these numbers will then become very important. And later on, I will talk about these numbers and how they actually affect your work. But I'm going to kind of go back to SGA for a quick second. SGA is basically used for Social Security purposes to let you know that you can work. And they understand that even though you're disabled, because technically if you're disabled and you're applying for Social Security, you can't work. That's technically what they're looking at. But untechnically, you still can work even though you're disabled, applying for Social Security benefits. As long as you don't reach these numbers, so in other words, if you're lower these numbers, the better to qualify for SSI and SSDI. Which is kind of important, how many of you, just in a list of hands, when you apply for benefits, have property? Nobody? Nobody have property when they apply for benefits for SSI, SSDI? Okay. This will be considered what we call assets. If you're on SSI, and if you apply for SSI or SSDI, you can still have property. Your home is considered property. You can have a vehicle, your own vehicle. So you can have one vehicle, your residence that you live in, that's not counted against you for applying for benefits. It's but you have to live inside those properties. So in other words, you can have, if you have property that you're not living in, that's counted against you. So they will look at that as considered income. But for the purposes of this discussion here, that's something that you just need to know, that you still can have property or assets as long as if you're married, $2,000, or if you're married, $3,000, and if you're single, $2,000. This can be used jointly, but if you, on the other hand, applying for benefits or already on benefits, and you have property but not living inside that residence, then that's a problem, especially if you're on SSI. For purposes of SSDI, the good news is it doesn't matter. And this is something that's very important. You can have all the property you want being on SSDI, and it will never count against you. So in other words, you can have assets, but it can be very tricky because if you're talking about stocks and bonds, that's more challenging. But overall, if you're on SSDI and you're qualified for SSDI, meaning you meet the minimum standards for SSDI, or if you're already on SSDI, property does not matter. But you must make sure that one car, one home for SSI. So far, you guys are understanding?
Yeah.
At the end, yeah, at the end. Okay, as I said earlier, for me, as an advocate, my role ends at the appeals council level, which is basically step 4, because as a non-attorney, I cannot practice beyond that, because after that is federal. Now, this is a question that's always asked. What's the difference between an advocate versus an attorney? This is a question that I'm going to raise out in the crowd. What's the difference between an attorney and a non-attorney? Anybody know?
Cost per hour.
Huh?
I said cost per hour. That
Nope.
was cynical.
Nope. Any other question? Any other answer?
You ever pass a bar?
There you go.
Nope. That's not. Any other answer that they think? Yeah?
Okay, if you work for like.
No. I'm at that's later. The question a little later. The question right now is, what's the difference between an attorney and a non-attorney? Huh?
Nice.
Confidentiality.
No.
An attorney can speak for you.
Nope. Okay. Technically, none.
Oh.
You all do the exact same thing.
Oh my god.
The only time that it's a difference is when it goes beyond the appeals council level. Because at that point, now we're practicing law. And as a non-attorney, I'm not a lawyer. But overall, I as a non-attorney, an attorney, no matter what you hear on TV, we all do the exact same thing. There's no difference. We all have the same knowledge, but the biggest difference, which makes it really nice, is that, and I'm not promoting one or the other, the role of an attorney is to practice law. The role of a disability advocate is to focus primarily on disability. So in other words, when we process a claim, we process a claim more aggressively. I've seen situations where, again, I'm not putting attorneys down, but this is you can find this on the internet. Social Security prefers to work with non-advocates versus attorneys. And the reason why is because we as advocates know how to better represent our client. We work more directly with the client and we can process the cases more faster. And that's something that a lot of, when you go to the seminars, they may not like to talk about this, especially if you go to an attorney seminar, is that attorneys, well, not really, I want to say attorney, but most likely, I ran into a lot of situations where the client has gotten burnt. And because a lot of advocates who are, within that realm, that's the only thing I want to say, they like to drag the case out as long as possible. And the reason for it is very, very simple: money. Somebody mentioned earlier, I think it was you about the cap. There is no cap because the good thing about Social Security in the sense that you can go to me or you can go to a lawyer, we all get paid the same amount of money, no matter what. It's very strict, and if you're doing an initial disability claim, the maximum right now in 2018 is $6,000. Now, you're probably wondering how you get paid. In those type of cases, when it's an initial disability claim, we don't get paid until the end of the case, meaning that if the case is won. And this is one thing that's very unique about Social Security compared to other areas of law. We're the only area of law more likely that actually works like that, where if you come to us up front and say, I want to process my disability claim, I cannot charge you. Because if I try to charge you, only charges we can charge you is administrative costs. But it's so minimal. But other than that, we cannot charge you. If anybody tells you that if they want to process your claim and you have to pay them money, right away. Because it's illegal. And that person can get into some serious trouble. Because now we're doing fraud. So in other words, really, this is more like commission. There is an exception to the rule, though, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, is overpayment. That's the exception to the rule where it's called really auxiliary, more like under auxiliary type of payments, where if you come to a person for help with that, that's the exception where you have to pay up front. And this is actually where I specialize in, to tell you the truth. This is my area of expertise. Because Social Security is so broad. I do initial claims and also do overpayment claims. Anybody have an idea what an overpayment may be? Yeah? Yeah?
I
Question?
want to ask a question.
It has to do with overpayment. If anything besides what I'm asking now has to be later on. So, can I ask a question? Anybody has an idea what an overpayment may be? Yeah?
So they make a mistake and give you more month per month than what you're entitled to?
Good. That's one good answer. Overall, this is where, in my opinion, it's one of the most complex areas of Social Security, because this has to do more with financial and sometimes medical. So an overpayment is basically where Social Security has sent you an excess amount of resources. In the past 5 years, there's been an aggressive push from Social Security to try to get back more money. And the way they're doing that is telling people that they're overpaid. And this is reality, that they're saying that you can be overpaid by $100. But the way Social Security is going to operate is that they're going to take the $100 and times that by some just various calculations, the time that you first got your benefits to the present. And it can be $30,000 or it can be up to $100,000. This is all at the discretion of Social Security. They're not supposed to do that, but they do that. They do that a lot.
Excuse me, could you repeat that last number, please?
Sure. Sometimes when Social Security does these overpayments, in the way that there's various calculations that if you are overpaid by $100, they can sort of backtrack that $100 times when you first got your Social Security benefits. So if you've been on Social Security for maybe 4 or 5 years, they can go back from present to time and times that by how many months and say this is how much you owe, and it can be from $30,000 to $100,000. This is where, and this is I have to emphasize, never ever do this by yourself. If you're applying for an initial disability case, you can do it on your own, you can do it online, but in these cases right here, overpayment, you cannot do it on your own because the law is so complex and it's impossible to know and how to deal with that. Lawyers and advocates have many tools to work with the law because there's so many different provisions, and this is where it becomes complex. And this has to do more with what I call financial counseling. So there's another thing I like to talk about, which is a good thing. How many people here are either working or trying to find a job? Good, good, good. The good thing about being on Social Security is that there are work incentives. There are many different ways in which Social Security can help you go back to work. The way I would suggest that you do it before you even think about going to work, and it's good because here I call this rehab, because you guys are here learning a trade to better help you with your disability in life. So I guess it's a part of rehab. By you being within this program, within rehab, just using that, it's going to protect your Social Security. 90% of the time, the way the law works is that you're not supposed to be scheduled for a review. And a review is called a CDR, Continuing Disability Review. Every 3 to 5 years, Social Security sends you a letter saying, or not saying, but asking if you're still disabled and asking you a series of questions. They do that so that they can try to see if they can try to get more money out of you. Because if they find out that you're not disabled anymore, and you don't notify them, and they find out this, you're gonna have a huge problem. So my thing is, always inform it and always go to the doctor, even though your disability is never going to change, because usually, and most likely in blind cases, it's permanent most of the time. So, but even though it may be permanent and it's never going to get better, always still continue to see your doctor for follow-up visits. Because one time that you don't do that can be a bad mistake. So, Social Security looks at that in 2 ways: medical improvement or financial improvement. And financial improvement goes back to SGA. what in that current year. Now, if your disability is not improved, you don't have to worry about it. But you still have to go to the doctor. Then there's another thing. When you're applying for Social Security, even though you have your own doctor, almost always Social Security is going to send you to their doctor. This doctor really don't really know how Social Security works. That's the person just basically just pays. That's what I like to look at. So that person's report, take it with a grain of salt, because it really, technically really holds less. To them it holds a lot of weight, but it's not that much weight, because your primary care person who's basically treating you, who you've been seeing for a long time, has more authority. But the way the rules are going now, Social Security is more trying to push in that direction. Hasn't quite happened just yet, but that's what they're pushing for. So that's something to kind of be aware of. Now, let's talk about healthcare. This is something that a lot of you like understand. Under Social Security, once you get on Social Security, there are 2 programs that's available, depending on which type of benefits you're receiving. If you're on SSI, you would automatically qualify for Medicaid right away. Later on in the presentation, maybe in the afternoon, you will have a Medicare person talking about Medicare and how that works. I can dab on it a little bit about that because I kind of deal with that in my practice to a certain degree, but in terms of Social Security. But 24 months after being on SSDI, you qualify for Medicare. That's sort of the umbrella. But there is a provision that will allow you to get on Medicare sooner. It's a formula that is used. Social Security is not going to tell you about this because they want you to wait. Later on, I have flyers and I have business cards. You can feel free to talk to me and I will be gladly to answer any more questions. I want to talk a little bit more kind of in depth, briefly, about my role as an advocate. As an advocate, it is my responsibility to be on your side. I'm not saying believe everything you guys say, because I have to verify. But it's more the fact that I'm working on your behalf as to help gather information. So if you guys have a mental or physical or mental impairment, it doesn't matter. If you have problems trying to access your medical records with your doctor, I can help do that. It's my job to help do that. It's my job to make phone calls on your behalf. It's my job to intervene with Social Security. I do all of that. Basically, you will be having contact with me directly, or the lawyer that you deal with, or the advocate that you deal with directly. That's their responsibility. If you find someone that you have currently as an advocate, but you're not happy with that person, you can always change. It's not required. It's something that many people may not know. You're not obligated with that person. But you just have to make sure that you inform that person you're dealing with to sign a waiver. What's the most important aspect of my job as an advocate? Dealing with the bureaucracy. That's plain and simple. There's too much unnecessary bureaucracy within Social Security. They make every year a lot of unnecessary regulations that it's just putting more of a burden on people like you who are trying to get the necessary benefits that you deserve. Now, I said earlier, you probably heard a lot of stuff on TV about how they plan on cutting Social Security and they're doing this and doing that. A lot of it's kind of hot air and a lot of it's not. But the way I would look at it, the way I kind of tell people to look at it as, one, it hasn't happened yet. Two, it'll be very difficult because forget about the people who are like non-seniors, because people here are like, I believe, like looking at over 50. You guys have a big voice. within this society. So there's more for you guys that you guys have access to. Like there's retirement. That's huge. That's a big voice within the disability. It's part of disability actually, this community. So very unlikely, not impossible, but a lot of stuff is just kind of like hot air. A lot of these Democrats, a lot of these Republicans, technically they talk a lot of stuff, but they're never going to do that. Well, I shouldn't say never, but unlikely. So my suggestion, my advice to you is try not to believe everything that you hear on TV about all the stuff that you hear about Social Security, cutbacks. There are cutbacks, but it's very minimal. But if you don't see it personally, don't worry about it. Don't put that stress on your life. Continue your daily life. Continue to do what you're doing. Now, I didn't mention, which I want to kind of go over. When you start working, there are different incentive programs. This is kind of really interesting. That when you're working, or even if you are working, and you're just not getting a job, there are various programs that you can take advantage of within a Social Security process to maintain your benefits. And these programs that I'm going to mention just a few, but these programs will help keep your benefits on Social Security and will not get cut off as long as you're under that program. One, the return to work planning. Second one is job search assistance. 3 is ticket to work period. Trial work periods, correction. Extended period of eligibility and expedited reinstatement. I'll talk about this. Return to work planning. What is that? Return to work planning is basically where you either work with rehab or you work with a specialist to help kind of plan your life's goal from disability to work, basic transition. Sometimes, usually in this phase, you really don't need that because you can just get this directly from Social Security. Only need to say that you're planning on going back to work. You notify them and you're granted. You will have really on these program basically 9 months that's once you start working, not trying to find work. But once you're working, you will have time to where they're looking at that you're working and you can earn as much money as you want. Now, when we talk about these things, I do have someone I work with who specializes in this, but for just general, that's basically what these programs basically offer you, is a chance to get back to work while you're on disability and keep your benefits. Job search assistance. This is basically for you. You're working with someone, a job coach, to help you find work that you're qualified for. And this is something that I kind of really want to talk about more in depth, that being disabled, there are a lot of challenges. And I've experienced this firsthand. You're going to run into many people within the system that want to be working against you. One, I say believe in yourself. Everyone here has an ability. Everyone here knows their strengths and weaknesses. Don't let someone tell you that you cannot do this. Just because you're disabled. My thing is, being disabled can be a good thing. It can be the start of a new life. So maintain your independence and know what your goal is and stay with that goal. Don't let, kind of like the system try to push you towards something that's less or beneath what your capabilities are. Trial work period, or there's another word what we call the TTP. Again, it's similar to that, but this is where basically what I call a specialist, where you have a program or a map, a roadmap that helps guide you in every step, and it's like a ladder. You have various levels that you go through, and you have a person working with you to make sure that you reach these different obstacles. And they're working with you, they're working with Social Security to, kind of like make a smooth transition into basically permanent work, so that eventually you can get off of Social Security. Extended period of eligibility. This is one of the things actually that is kind of not talked about within Social Security, that they really don't want to volunteer the information. But if those of you who are actually past the ticket to work period or like 9-month period of working, and you say you earn more money and now you can actually officially get off, well, the good thing is, as long as you're disabled with this particular program, you can keep your medical benefits for 3 to 5, 6 years and so forth, even though you're not receiving disability payments anymore. Then there's expedited reinstatement. Again, with this one, this has to do with your disability. As long as you're under this, either one of these work programs, and let's say that eventually the job may not work out for you, or you got downsized whatsoever, here you don't have to worry about trying to reapply and going through that whole lengthy process over again. You can get back on Social Security, getting your benefits right away within probably a couple of weeks. So, okay, so pretty much talked about everything. So now I'll open up the floor for questions. Yeah.
I was diagnosed, I became disabled in
You need the mic.
92.
I can bring a photo.
You need the mic.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring it.
Yes.
I was disabled in 92. I had a stroke. And about 6 years ago, I was diagnosed as being legally blind. So my counselor rehab told me to get reassigned. And they told me that I will only be getting...
Everybody can hear you.
I became disabled in 92. And then the last 6 years, I got legally blind. So I was told to get reassigned, and they told me I would only be getting a couple dollars more, and that there was a chance that I would lose my benefits because they might decide that even though I'm blind, I could work, and then I wouldn't be able to get any benefits at all.
Anybody kind of hear her question? Her question is that she was diagnosed with the previous disability before she became blind, and now that she's blind, she's getting it correctly.
And my blindness is related.
Yeah,
to my
I know,
disability.
that's what I'm saying. But now she's trying to go back and have her second diagnosis to her disability. Is that the rehab or Social Security?
Social Security.
Okay. And then to answer that question, here's what it is. Actually,
You need to use the microphone.
Yeah, can you use the other mic?
her question basically was the fact that she was disabled under previous disability. Years later, she became blind, and now she's going back to Social Security to let them know that she's blind and maybe try to get more money. So how does that work? Really, I'm not going to say impossible, but less likely. But if I may ask, what's the, you don't have to really say the specifics, but was it the first disability mental or physical?
Physical.
Okay.
I had a stroke.
Okay.
And my disability, my blindness is a result of the stroke.
In this particular situation, because her, are you trying to going back? Are you trying to go back to work, or are you just
No.
okay? So, in this situation, as far as her trying to get more money from Social Security because of this new disability, I think it's very unlikely because it's really not going to do that much of a difference. Now, on the other hand, if actually she was more like had a serious mental impairment where she was under a caregiver and now became blind, that's something that can possibly get her more money because there's more of a how you say it, of a need for her to be taken care of. So she will get more assistance, and getting a caretaker and other things. So in that situation, Social Security could give her additional money. Does that answer the question?
Okay.
In her situation, because if that's hypothetical, if she had a mental disability and then serious mental disability and then later became blind, she could possibly get more money from Social Security because she has more responsibility and thus she has more need of a caretaker. So therefore, Social Security could try to give her a raise or raise for like an increase in the allowance to help pay for that. But I should caution that though, because it's something that I didn't talk about. Social Security has a program called what they call a representative payee. That can be very, very tricky because especially if you're blind or have a very serious mental problem. If you have any kind of psychological problem whatsoever, Social Security will guarantee that you have a representative payee, even though you may be able to take care of it yourself, because Social Security is under the impression that you can't. There's been a lot of fraud within that particular program. It's basically where Social Security pays somebody else to manage your funds. I caution that to people if they are eligible to take care of it for themselves. Next question. Yeah.
Okay, before we do this, if anybody has a question, raise your hand because I can bring the mic over so everybody can hear you. Okay. I should went over there.
Is it true that Medicare takes $104 out your money for Medicare?
Try 134 this year. That's right.
Yeah, it went up this year because I'm on disability from Medicare, and I previously worked, but now I'm getting more of a share cost plus the annual amount what they take out my Social Security check every month.
I'm with ICAP and Medicare, and I can answer that very
Yeah, that's what
quickly.
I was just about to say. That's the question I was going to refer to.
I'm going to be covering this information at 2 o'clock with my lecture, but there are programs that can help pay for those costs, and I'll be talking about that too.
Okay.
I think that because probably the majority of people here are blind or low vision, I'd like you to talk more about the important distinctions between status, irrespective of any possible difference in benefit levels, but some of the reasons why, and there are many, that a person who is blind would like to be categorized as blind rather than as disabled, including, for example, the over 55 provisions, the IRWE versus blind work expenses provisions, and other things of that nature. So could you talk about some of those distinctions, please?
Briefly. Technically, there really is no difference in amount of money because that's all based on how much you pay into the system. The only time that there's more money that comes into place is regarding the SGA. That's the only time that your blindness will come into place as far as getting extra income. That's what I talked about earlier, where if you're blind, you can earn a certain amount of money. But other than that, your blindness has no effect as far as how much money you get, because that's all based on how much you pay into the system.
What about BWE versus IRWE?
Blind work expense versus there's two different things of BWE and there's IRW. BWE is blind work expense.
Yeah.
Basically what that is that it's not any, but it's Social Security has many different categories, much like the IRS, where you can deduct certain things. And in this situation, anything that's related to your blindness, guide dog, braille note, anything that you're buying that's related directly to your blindness is a BWE. And then there's the other. Then there's the basically IRWN. That's kind of like a more general umbrella where it's basically impairment related work expense. So that expense is basically where it's in addition to your blind expense, but this is more where it falls into self-employment, where you kind of use this kind of like category. If you have your own business, that other expenses that are not related to blindness fall into that category, i.e. transportation, medical, food. Again, that's associated to the small business. So like if you guys if you're independent contractor, for instance, or you have your own business, and let's say that you work at home, and your desk, or you get something that's directly related to disability that you had an add-on like a wheelchair. I guess I could use that as an example. If you get a wheelchair ramp inside your home, and you work inside your home, that falls under the category as impairment work expenses. A car, if you have a car, you're paying for gas. All these things will be under that category. And these different categories can be deducted. But it only works if you're above the SGA level. Meaning that again, if you're blind, we deduct these things to bring you under that category. And I said there's a whole list of different variations of this. And there's a kind of a calculation. So you can feel free to, I can email this to you guys, come up here, and I can feel free to email this to you. So that you guys can have this. Next question.
Hi, we're here to learn more about that gap period 18 to 21. Could you just, and I know there's a whole world there, just that you touched on something about what to do before the adult becomes 21. Could you just talk a little bit about why that's important and then what the benefits are to that conversion?
Sure. Anybody heard her question? Her question is that I talked about earlier, the transition between 18 and 21, which is adult child. It's important because when you're under 21 years old, you're still under the category as a child, and your benefits are under your parents or guardian's record. Again, adopted parent. The importance of transitioning as soon as 3 months before you reach 21, not really early, I suggest. And the reason for that is, I just kind of mentioned a little bit about it earlier, while you're under your parents' record and one of your parents get divorced or something happened, you're affected. Your benefits can be cut off. So I suggest that once you reach that category or that age gap, immediately transition, because then nothing can happen to you because it's on your record. So like a child, parents, you're the parent of the child is dependent on you. It's the same situation. We want you to be from dependent to independent. So that way, whatever happens to that person will not affect your benefits. That's the whole purpose of that. And there's kind of one other thing I kind of want to mention about that. More likely that person is going to be in school. And I didn't mention that. If you're a child, or not child, but you're a young adult, which Social Security looks at that as being 18 and 21, or adult child, it's imperative to maintain your benefits that you be in school full time. That's something that I forgot to talk about. If somehow you're 18 and over, and you're on SSI, and you're not going to school full time, your benefits will be cut off, no matter if you're under your parents' record or under your record, because one of the rules is that you have to be in school full time. That's one thing. There is something else I want to mention that's kind of a nice thing. That how many of you have student loans? Nobody has student loans here? You on SSI, SSDI? Want to hear some good news? Your loans can be discharged. If you're on Social Security Disability, SSI, SSDI, your student loans can be discharged permanently. Wow. That's the good thing about being on Social Security.
When did that change?
I don't know exactly, so I can't tell. I just do it. So I've been trained on, I learned about that a couple of years ago. So.
Wow.
But that's kind of like really always been there.
I have a quick question. In determining a permanent disability or trying to establish it, are family testimony disqualified? Like, you know how you were saying a pastor or if somebody has a permanent disability?
I think it was last year, I think, or maybe 3 years ago. Social Security now, let's say about 2 or 3 years ago, they're trying not to really use a close relative because they kind of think it's biased. So I still say use it anyway because that person knows more about you. But again, your pastor, someone who knows you for at least 5 years plus, 4 or 5 years plus, is best to get, a letter. And then I said, should somehow later on that if whoever works on your claim or you want to do it yourself and you have to go to a hearing in front of a judge, that person should go with you. So the more people that can go with you to testify, the stronger your case will be.
Isn't it better to have medical records and reports from your doctor?
Everything, medical records, school records, financial records, anything you can think of will better help your case.
But they still ask for a witness on the paper.
That's where I mentioned earlier, a friend, relative, somebody who knows you for at least 4 to 5 years plus.
Giselle, I have a question, and this is a little controversial. I've heard some disability rights activists who've been fighting for Social Security reform for years label the so-called Social Security work incentives as disruptive disincentives, because basically you lose very quickly what you supposedly get. In other words, you start earning even a little, even after the trial work period, of course, or if you go above your SGA, you begin to lose. So basically what they say is that you're kept down and out and poor, and that Social Security does not respect your civil rights and your ability to advance in this country. And I just want to know if you're, have you been involved with this? I know that 20 years ago there was a SSI modernization study that called for the resource limit to be raised to $10,000, and it never took place.
That question is kind of an ongoing question that, really honest with you, that is true. These programs, on one hand, they look good in the sense that it says, okay, yeah, these help you get back to work and you can do this and do that. But in reality, it's really like you say, when you break everything down, it's really all the same. It really does limit you and really prevent you from progressing. So I really agree with that.
Would a payee have to go with you to represent your case in case you have to requalify?
Or can you raise your hand? I can't. Okay. Can you repeat the question?
In case you have to requalify, would you have to get all the witnesses you need, also including your payee?
When you say requalify, is it more like
Requalify for getting SSI pay.
Okay, but I need to clarify. When you say requalify, you mean like you've probably been on it and now you're re-establishing, or are you trying to just maintain your benefits? You're getting a continued disability review.
Because I've been on it for years.
Okay, so you have a continued disability review. No, you really don't have to. Only thing you really have to maintain is just a doctor's of your medical records to substantiate that you're still disabled. And if possible, some financial documents that if you're working, that is, to show that you're still under the SGA.
Y'all finished? I'm a mother of 13. And my name is Belinda.
I have dealt with some disability, and I don't even like disability. They so disrespectful to me. Okay, I have to go in there and raise my voice up a little bit. I have to get up. Do you see my internet? Speak it. Get it? I have to do stuff like that. Because they try to pull wool over people. I can't stand this Oakland Social Security office.
What's your question?
And the question, you know, I had some kids on Social Security, right? You know they took them off of Social Security at 16. And everybody talking about, to the 18. I took the paper back in. They did. They did not. Took my son to the court thing down here on Capitol. And same thing. Same letter. Did not. But I couldn't get him back home. And this is under the age of 18.
Are they in school?
Yeah. They both in school. One of them have IEP. And he said, and when I went back for it, I asked him why they denied my child. The only way he's going to be able to receive is he have another disability. That means you sign up for another type of disability. I can't stand them. You know, they tell me to do so many changes. So, let me see, I have some issues. But anyway, I'll pass the microphone.
Let me kind of answer briefly. I can answer your question briefly because it's more.
Anybody with questions?
I'm going to kind of respond very briefly.
I have a question.
Okay, hold on. Let me respond to you briefly. Technically, I really don't do childhood cases, so I can refer you to someone who does that if you want me to. They can better answer your question, because I don't know nothing about child cases.
Okay, she wants to know who is the advocate for her. Okay.
I will give you my card, and you call me, and I can help find you somebody that you can talk to.
How much you going to charge?
I'm just going to charge.
Giselle's going to be here all afternoon, so if anyone wants to talk to him about their specific situation, you can do that after we wrap up, and he'll be here.
Thank you. Before I forgot to mention one other thing. Take about three or 4 minutes. In addition to the SSI, SSDI, and asset overpayments, I offer what I do as additional services is that as an advocate, as I said earlier, my job is to help you maintain your benefits. So with that, part of the job, when you're transitioning from disabled to work, especially if you're becoming self-employed, I work with you to better assist you in making sure that you don't fall over that. So, and then again, I have people that can help guide you on the best strategy for you, because everybody's different.
I just want to ask a question of clarification about the 1970 figure for if you're collecting SSDI and you're working. So I think it's important. I believe you were saying, because this is important for people to know, let's say that you make over that ceiling of 1970. Let's just say, for instance, that you make, I don't know, 2,500. You were saying that basically you can get yourself back down to that 1970 figure by deducting certain items. Your transportation, maybe your phone bill or your internet bill. So to me, it goes back to documentation. It's really important to keep those bills, those bank statements. I learned this about 1.5 years ago. You need to keep all these things, because an advocate like Giselle would look at them, Social Security would look at them, because if you want to continue receiving benefits and you go over that threshold, you need to get yourself back down to that 1970 number again. So save everything you have.
Okay, that's kind of important what she said. The key thing is that whatever year in which Social Security says that you were overpaid, how it works is that it doesn't work meaning on the current year. We use the figures based on the year in the way she said it, like 1979, for example. We would go by those SGA figures, not today's 2018 figures. Yeah.
I have a question. Will I be able to get a business card from you? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm here until 4 o'clock.
Oh, okay. That's my only question. Because I don't know if there's one in the packet.
Yeah, I have additional flyers of today's presentation and business cards to where you guys can come get.
Okay, thank you.
Can we have a time check here? Because just to
Any other
see
questions?
what we're working with.
12:40.
I'm sorry?
It's now 12:40.
Okay, so I would say maybe if there's any more questions, we could try to wrap up here within the next 10 minutes or so.
Oh, okay, my question is, I'm at the, I'm on the Social Security DI, and I have a 17-year-old, and something I was listening about the 18, well, if she's still at home at 18, they'll cut her off. Will I be able to switch her over under adult, or she would just get automatically cut off even if she's going to college? I mean, even if she's going to college, they'll still cut her off?
Full time?
If she goes full time, yes.
She's still disabled, right?
No, I'm the disabled person. She gets money for me.
So she's under the disabled adult child. As long as the person is going to continue to go to school full time, shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter, even though she's under my, she's not disabled, I am, right?
But usually that person should be disabled too. That's usually kind
Oh,
of
she has to be. Okay, I get it.
That's
Okay.
usually kind of like how it works. You just don't get free benefits because that person, just because you're disabled.
Okay.
Usually that person has to kind of be, unless the fact that you're taking care of a disabled child, that's kind of how that program works.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'm bringing it back now.
Hi, I turned 66 a couple of years ago, and I'm 68 now. And I had been on Social Security disability for about 15 years ago. And when I turned 60, I think it was 66, the law required, I think, that my SSDI would be switched over to Social Security retirement, which is what I'm on now. Now, I'd like to have some clarification whether any of this would affect me as long as I'm on Social Security retirement. And I also was told that I could make as much as I want if I'm on Social Security retirement.
I can't answer that question because I don't know nothing about retirement, so I have to defer that question. Sorry. I want to mention something right quick that kind of important that you guys can take with you. It's about taxes. It's kind of a scary topic. Social Security is tax deduct, is non-tax. So if you get your Social Security, most likely this disability you shouldn't have to pay no taxes, but get non-accounted. But more likely, when we're talking about garnishments, creditors, anybody who's non-federal cannot garnish a Social Security check. That's kind of an important thing to understand. So, only people who can garnish a Social Security check is basically IRS, anything that's government related can garnish a Social Security check. But anybody else who's part of the fair tax you and say, we are going to garnish a check, creditors and so forth, it's illegal. And if that happens, I think you should notify the Social Security, let them know that, these third parties are going to garnish it because it's illegal for people to do that.
So in other words, I'm okay. So in other words, I'm okay. Nothing I don't have to worry about.
I would check with Social Security because Giselle works with disability.
Yeah, as I said, I don't know about retirement. I would like to say for as kind of like time, any more questions, just come up to me later on, or one more question. Or
Take the mic. And if you are worried about being switched from disability to, if you're worried about being switched from disability, aged and disabled at age 65, then it will happen. If you are worried about if you can earn money or not and how much you can earn after that happens, you need to contact your disability group and ask about the Red Book rules. It's called the Red Book rules. And Social Security may or may not be able to answer your specific question, but if you contact your disability group and ask about the Red Book rules, they will be able to help you.
Steve just answered the question.
I'm
so
still
Mike, if you
confused.
can let him speak, raise your hand, Steve, so Mike can bring you the mic. Steve knows about it.
Can she answer the question right quick? Because she's there, and then you can come to her.
Yeah, I have a quick question. If an individual is informed by Social Security that Social Security did the overpayment where they made the mistake, can the individual have the attorney's fees or advocacy fees paid to get help with that?
This is the thing. Most, because these cases Social Security don't pay, that you have to pay out of your pocket. And most advocates, you're gonna have a really hard time because most people don't like to take on these cases. So talk to me afterwards, and then we can, I can discuss more with you. Okay? Because it's a lengthy process.
Steve, would you explain furthermore what you said? Because I'm not sure that I understand.
Mike over here.
Where? Okay.
Can I just say, Tammy, Steve is going to actually be speaking this afternoon.
Right, but he's not going to be speaking about that, and this is important, and I think he should be able to answer the question.
I know that we're really running low on time, and I guess what I'm curious is about, do people want to know the answer to this question that are also in this room? Or do we want to leave just a few more minutes for Giselle to answer questions?
It's a simple question.
Okay.
So, Social Security retirees, that is people receiving Social Security retirement. We're not talking about SSDI, we're not talking about SSI. We're talking about only Social Security retirement, or what's called OAS. Those people, if they're over the age of 65, are not subject to any income limitation or test. Now, if they have other sources of government income or pension, that becomes more complicated because there's other sources. But if they're only on Social Security retirement, then they are free from that risk. They're over the age of 65.
How about if they're under the age of 65 and they give us a
Any other quick questions for Giselle?
Where are your cards and how do we get a hold of
Just come up to the desk, or just pull me aside, or you can drag me aside.
With this? Right up here at the front.
Okay. Are you up by the TV?
Yeah, or just I can come to you. Just raise your hand, or okay. I thought what I do is that if anybody has any more questions or not, and I'll just go around and give everybody a flyer in the card.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Just
All right.
Okay, no more questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Giselle. Thank you, Giselle.
Thank you very much, Giselle. There we go. All right, we have lunch boxes, I believe, so let's move into the lunch phase. If I believe perhaps it's already